Director of Planning at UNRWA, the Palestinian Refugee Agency. UNRWA is saying that you're not actually going to go and evacuate from this area. Why not?
That's right. First of all, thanks for having me on. We're in the Tel Sultan area of Western Rafah. This has been our base, the base for UNRWA, the base for the entire humanitarian operation, essentially, since October. We are staying put where we are in Rafah for now, given the gravity of the situation and the need for us and the rest of the humanitarian partners active in Gaza, in Rafah, to meet the humanitarian needs and respond to what we see coming and what your correspondents have described so well.
But doesn't this mean that you're taking a huge risk for your staff? I mean, the Israelis are saying that it's no longer safe to be there in eastern Rafah.
Here in Western Rafah, just to be clear, so we're outside of the evacuation zone. We do have some shelters and some facilities that are inside that zone of about 100,000 people who have been ordered to move. I should say that we're witnessing movement of far more people, actually. I'm in Tel Sultan, which is, as I say, about 3 miles outside of the evacuation zone. I'm in the middle of a refugee camp, and this morning I've watched as many people who've been my neighbors, as it were, for the past several months have packed up their tents. They've dismantled their wooden structures. They're on the move because they fear what's coming, and they'd rather move now than wait with a fear that this evacuation order will be expanded to other parts of Rafah.
Now, if the Israelis do in fact start this ground operation in Rafah, what do you expect to be able to do in this area, since, I mean, you're staying put?
It will be very, very difficult for us to do a lot, partly given the scale of what we may be looking at and the conditions in which people find themselves, people, extremely vulnerable, extremely humiliated, who've been through so much over the past several months. But as your correspondent said, we're reliant on 2 entry points, well, essentially Kerem Shalom, which is right on the eastern border of Rafah. And if that entry point is closed off, then it would be very, very difficult to meet the large-scale humanitarian needs of the population that are now on the move. So we call for those crossings to be reopened. We call for the continued supply of food. And we call for those who have influence on the parties to the conflict to step back. There was a real feeling of respite in the air over the past couple of days. People felt that they'd stepped back from that edge, and now we've woken up to yet another chapter in this horrific war.
So what chapter is that? What do you see happening here?
We're best off not predicting or not looking into a crystal ball, but just the implications of an evacuation of Rafah, of the 100,000 people, and those outside the evacuation area will move. It will be simply catastrophic, and if that leads to more to come, then it will be beyond that. I mean, what we've got here is the resident population of about 300,000 people, but another million, half of them children, many of them who've moved many, many times already, either being forced or ordered to move to sand dunes in Mawasi, or otherwise being told that the safe place to go back to is Khan Yunis. Khan Yunis, Gaza's second city, has been absolutely decimated over the past several weeks, a large-scale operation. So people are going back to oblivion, essentially. So, who knows how this will play out? There's still time to step back, but already we're dealing with desperate conditions in Gaza, with the population on the brink of famine. We're struggling already to meet their needs. It will become far, far worse if the operation into this limited scope operation takes place, and if it expands further, well, it will be even worse still.
And I mean, what are you seeing happening at the Rafah Crossing at the moment, this vital crossing where you have all these aid deliveries trying to cross into Gaza at the moment? Do you think that is going to stay open, or are you seeing that perhaps even closing down if, in fact, the Israelis do go in and start this ground operation?
I mean, we operate through the Kerem Shalom crossing for supplies. This is where commercial supplies and where our supplies are coming in. The crossing was closed as of yesterday afternoon following the attack on an Israeli military base. It hasn't reopened today. What that means is there are some goods that are in there we're not able to protect. Those goods we're not able to distribute. Those goods we're also not able to get to the fuel supplies that also come in through this narrow point on the southeastern corner of Rafah. And look, as we know, for the past 17 years since the blockade has been in place in Gaza, everything that's come in has been rationed. Everything has been rationed, and so we're living on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis in terms of the supplies that are coming in. So if the crossing stays closed for more than a couple of days, the consequences of it will be very, very serious for a population that is completely reliant on aid and is on the brink of a man-made famine.
Indeed, a critical moment here in the history of this war. Sam Rose, the Director of Planning at UNRWA, thank you so much for joining us here on the News Hour here on TRT World.
Very much.